Good morning, everyone, and in our wildly changing world, welcome to our first Fireside Reflection with Laura and me. And thanks for inviting us into your homes, onto your computers. Um,
If
Laura?
you, in the email, hopefully you were able to pull up the document that has the two readings that Paul and I are going to be working off of. One is a scripture and one is a prayer by a very famous man, Reinhold Niebuhr. So we're going to start with Ecclesiastes 3. This is selected verses of that book. So it should be fairly familiar to you. For everything there is a season, and a time for every matter under heaven, a time to be born, and a time to die, a time to plant, and a time to pluck up what is planted, a time to kill, and a time to heal, a time to break down, and a time to build up, a time to weep, and a time to laugh, a time to mourn, and a time to dance, a time to embrace, and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to seek, and a time to lose, a time to keep, and a time to cast away, a time to rend, and a time to sow, a time to keep silence, and a time to speak. So Ecclesiastes is actually a very interesting book because it's actually a biography. So it is a biography of an unknown person who is on a faith journey to find wisdom. And the biography is told by the narrator. So you have kind of two people's voices working in this beautiful book of the Bible. So our journeyer, our faith journeyer, believes that wisdom is the way for humanity to have a well-lived life. So his journey is to find how humanity can master wisdom, basically. And as you read through the entirety of Ecclesiastes, you realize that his journey is incomplete. He's never actually able to find that and to prove that. He's never able to say that wisdom is in fact the answer. But as we all know, it's really the journey itself that is what is important. And so the biographer writes that wisdom, in fact, the reason why the journeyer couldn't come to this conclusion is that wisdom has its own limitations. And it's not humanity's concern. What is discovered on this journey, though, is that everything is ordered in time and that people are subject to time. And this is in contrast to God's eternal clock, God's kind of eternal purpose. So, for instance, we know that the world is filled with injustice. But why? Because God allows it? No, because humanity allows it. Why? Because full wisdom belongs to God and not to humanity. We're not in charge. God and humans just simply don't exist on the same realm and don't even belong in the same realm. So the journeyer reflects on the limits of human power, saying that all people face death, but we should enjoy life while we can. And he says, look, the world is full of ups and downs. It's full of risks. It's full of pains and sorrows. It's full of times of blessings and times of pain. It is full of times of deep laughter, and there is times of deep crying. Then that basically he concludes that humans should kind of take pleasure when we can, because there may come a time in which we can't. Because as he says, for everything there is a season and a purpose under heaven. So in this season of COVID-19, and one that we have never experienced before, we have a choice. We are on a journey. So we have a choice. Is this a time to live in fear? Or is this a time that we're going to create to have purpose and meaning in our lives? And it's really for us to decide what meaning we're going to give it. Do we give it fear and depression and anxiety? Or do we give it new opportunity to call old friends that we've been out of touch with, to spend quality time with those who are living in our homes, to participate in the mission opportunities that are now in front of us, or even to do something like explore a topic or knit or something that we've never done before? Time to do something that we just haven't had the time for before. So in short, do we use this time in fear, or do we use this time in love? And as Christians, the answer is pretty simple, because it comes back to what Christ tells us, that this, if we can do it, is a fabulous time to live in God's love, to love and serve our neighbors as we would love and serve ourselves. So in each and every situation, we trust in God. We might not understand God, but that's not our purpose. And we trust and believe in the wisdom of God.
Yeah. And it's a beautiful passage from the scriptures. It's one of everyone's favorite passages, right? And there's a certain kind of resonance that people have. Do we have naturally, especially with that first line that says, for everything there is a season and a time for every matter under heaven. We resonate with that. We feel that with kind of the daily ups and downs that we face, and I think especially now, right, as you say, I mean, this is that time of changes, and one of the things that the book talks about, Book of Ecclesiastes talks about in general, is what do you invest in? What's the most worthwhile things that you invest in? And as he goes through, if you get more into the book, he's talking about all the different pleasures of life, and where he comes down is he's saying that the kind of the momentary pleasures are fleeting, and he talks about vanity, vanity, all is vanity. And the thing that he comes down to, which is the opportunity I think that we have right now, is saying, asking ourselves, what are we going to invest in this time of sweeping change, where a lot of the things that we have depended on in terms of schedules and just the order of our daily lives has been all tumbled around and everything. And so I think everybody's looking for an anchor. Everybody's looking for roots and for some kind of stability. And when everything in the world, materially kind of changes around like that, what are we left with if we are fortunate enough to be able to have those roots of faith that we find in prayer, that we find in love, that we find in human connection, that we find in God's creation, that we find in the sunshine and taking walks and kind of getting back in touch with those roots. Then we end up finding those anchors that we need, and we shift our focus from the kind of the change and the chaos of the world, and we shift it back into the groundedness, the foundation that we have in God and love and family and all those different things that are very stable, and they're there all the time, but sometimes our attention gets diverted. And that's where I love, where he talks about wisdom. And I remember somebody saying that wisdom is seeing things as they are, and I think that that's what this is. It's seeing life for as it really is, not on the surface, but beneath the surface, and how he talks about the changes and being able to go with the flow of changes, and
that things aren't static in life.
Right, yeah, exactly.
Things have an ebb and flow to them.
Yeah, and that this is one of those times in ebb and flow, and the happiest, out of all the wisdom traditions. I mean, it seems like they all talk about, happiness being associated with our ability to change and develop and adapt, and to really to be in God's time, and not to say at all that that a virus is something from God. I don't see that at all. But it's kind of like people have said where you can't change the direction of the wind, but you can always change the direction of your sails, and that's one of the things my dad used to say all the time. And great great sailing community. We can relate to that. And I think that is, that's the time that we've got right now, right? Is to adjust our sails.
And I think an interesting part for us is to realize how easily we've adjusted our sail.
Mm.
I mean, it's complex and it's difficult, but when there was a greater purpose, which I think we all understand, the purpose of all of this is to protect everybody, not just ourselves. And I think when with that global understanding that this is all for the good of humanity, then the change becomes much easier for people to adapt to. Like suddenly we're doing this and we're doing online church and people are doing that and kids are at school online and parents are finding new ways to adjust to having kids and spouses home with them all day and all night and finding joy in that. And I think that's one of the things that one of your favorite scriptures from Christ. I've come, go ahead, I won't take it from you. I've come so that you may have joy.
So you may have joy and your joy may be full.
And your joy may be full, right? And so I think one of our purposes in all of this is to find that joy, that everyday joy that we can find in the small things, whether it's cleaning out a closet or picking up a new hobby or helping somebody or spending time with your kids. I mean, I would have loved to have had this opportunity with our kids as little kids to, be able to go outside and explore the outdoors with them and kind of get away from the crush of schedules and teams and everybody else dictating our time to a time in which we get to decide what are we going to do with our day.
And the interesting thing is that one of the especially people talk about Fairfield County and the kind of personality that Fairfield County has, and part of which is the busyness and rush and being so close to New York City and everything, and we talk to people, and a lot of times, certainly before this, people would be saying, how are you? I'm so busy. I'm so busy and rushed, and overpressured, and the schedules are too full. And and looking forward to a time when we had a little space on our plate, and I think it'd be a shame if now that we have that space, if now we're kind of complaining because it's too much space. It's kind of like it's like in the wintertime it's too cold, and then it comes to be summertime, and it's too hot, and if we kind of narrow that bandwidth in which we are happy, if we narrow our bandwidth of happiness to the time when everything is absolutely just perfect, if it's 82 degrees and sunny and all these these very, very narrow parameters, then what we've just done is we've just taken our band of happiness, if that's what it takes for us to be happy, having all these things right, and then we narrow it, and what we've done is we've just taken happiness from here and we've brought it down to a very small space. So I think that would be something for us to to think about. So I think one of the bottom lines is embrace change, which isn't easy, and I think it's something that we that you honestly it does take effort, it does take intentionality to do anything that's beyond the comfort zone, whether you're exercising or starting any kind of a new habit, that it doesn't come 100% easily, naturally. And so it's okay to force yourself to try to embrace change. And even if you're kind of gritting your teeth at the time, going, it's like, okay, I'm gonna love change, I'm gonna welcome change. But if you keep going back to that, then you can find ways to do that.
Yeah. And it's fun to see, just very simply, the traffic on Pequot Avenue is not cars. It is people on bikes and people walking dogs. We are going to have the most healthy group of dogs that have ever existed in our community after this. But it's lovely we go out every day with our family at 5 o'clock and take our dog out and walk around our village. And it's just a fabulous reminder of how beautiful, hopefully when this is all over, we keep doing that. I mean, it would be a shame to say that that was a COVID-19, and not to fool ourselves that we're, just because life is back to what it used to be, that, we no longer have time to do those types of things.
Yeah, well, so I think, we would both hope, right, that some of the good changes that are happening through this would stick, and, that we can take a second thought about our schedules. We can maybe incorporate the walking into our schedules. And I'll just say, with all of this, I mean, one of the we've got another poem to share that again talks about change and the wisdom and of adapting to change and acceptance. Acceptance is a very, very powerful spiritual tool, which isn't at all the same thing as resignation. Resignation is something completely different, but acceptance, there's loving acceptance, there's a very different energy to that. It's very calming, to people out there, to the energy out there. It's very calming within. And so we're just gonna read. I'll just read, and you can read along if you got the email. That is the Serenity Prayer. The Serenity Prayer, obviously, is something that has been very popular in the anonymous groups. But what some people don't realize is that it was written by Reinhold Niebuhr. Reinhold Niebuhr was a congregational minister, of which Southport Congregational is obviously a part. And a lot of people know the first part of it. Not a whole lot of people know the second part of it. And the second part of it offers even more wisdom, and as you can hear, it's even more faith-based. So we can just kind of settle in and relax and listen into the Serenity Prayer by Reinhold Niebuhr. God, give me grace to accept with serenity the things that cannot be changed, courage to change the things which should be changed, and the wisdom to distinguish the one from the other. Living one day at a time, enjoying one moment at a time, accepting hardship as a pathway to peace, taking, as Jesus did, the sinful world as it is, sinful being broken, not as I would have it, trusting that you will make all things right if I surrender to your will, so that I may be reasonably happy in this life and supremely happy with you forever in the next. Amen.
That is one of the parts of Ecclesiastes too, that the journeyer says, we live a happy life now and a supremely happy life in the afterlife.
Yeah. God. Which is, again, I mean, saying similar things in different layers, but as we pray the Lord's Prayer, Thy will be done, where the discipline of it, it's not a trick, obviously, but you'd say, like, the trick, the key to happiness is the more we seem to align our wills to kind of notice God's will out there, and instead of fighting, instead of swimming upstream, to have the wisdom to see things as they truly are, and then to learn to align our lives with our will, with God's will, and to swim with the current. And so I would hope that, and our hope and our prayer is that we take this time to work on that with incredible joy, incredible acceptance, to take the opportunities to align with God, with love, with one another, with God's creation, with good health. And I just want to add that it's funny that the little gifts that come, kind of the unexpected gifts. We don't usually get to tune in with everybody on a Wednesday morning, and I appreciate this opportunity to be able to do that.
Yeah. great. And following on that, maybe a good way to close out is by doing the Lord's Prayer together.
And if we want to join together. Our
Our
Father,
Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. And give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen.
we hope to see you on Sunday. We look forward to you tuning in 10 o'clock on Sunday morning and next Wednesday.
Yeah, and thanks for joining us, and thanks to our producer, Scott Whitmore. We'll see you Sunday.
See you soon. Bye-bye.